We all love a good brain teaser every now and then, don't we? That satisfying feeling you get from solving problems and overcoming challenges, whether it be matching up the colors of a Rubik's Cube or putting pieces of cardboard together to make a picture of cats riding on pizzas in the empty void of space. You know what I'm talking about. But if there's one thing we love more than solving problems, it's winning. And puzzle games were created to fulfill both of those desires. Puzzle games are pretty cool, and Mario's had his fair share of them over the years, so today, let's give them some attention. But what exactly qualifies as a puzzle game? Well, you'd probably think of block stackers like Tetris, but puzzle games can come in many different forms. You've got logic-based games like Brain Age, tile-matching games like Zuma, and physics-based games like Portal. Basically, puzzle games are all about using the game's mechanics to solve puzzles. So even something like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker counts as a puzzle game. But I already made a video on that game, so I'm not going to be talking about it here. Although that was like a long time ago, so maybe I should do a revisiting on it one of these days. Of course, when Mario-related puzzle games come up in conversation, which clearly happens a lot given that it's such a hot topic, there's no way you can talk about them without mentioning Dr. Mario. Which I already did in another video, so go watch it. Keep in mind, I'm not going to be covering every single Mario puzzle game in this video. Some of them you can't even play anymore, like this old Flash game called Barrel Blastapalooza that was made to promote the Game Boy Advance port of Donkey Kong Country 3. And others were just straight up cancelled, like this proposed Donkey Kong title called Coconut Crackers. Please tell me that's not what the final logo was going to look like. So I went to the Mario Wiki, clicked on the puzzle games category to see what the website considers to be a puzzle game, and from that I put together a list of 11 games that I thought would be worth showcasing in this video. Though, to be more specific, I recorded 16 games, since most of them have ports on other consoles. And I wonder why these videos take me so long. Now, the first puzzle game that Mario ever made was also one of the earliest games in general that Mario ever made. This is Wrecking Crew for the NES, which is technically the second game in the series. In Japan, it was predated by Versus Wrecking Crew, an arcade game released 10 months earlier. The NES game isn't a one-to-one port per se, since it's more of a single-player experience and has a greater emphasis on puzzle solving. In this game, Mario is a construction worker trying to tear down all these walls and ladders and stuff. You do so by blowing them up using bombs, or busting them down with your magic hammer. Then once you've cleared the site, you move on to the next stage. There's also a design mode where I guess you can make your own stages, but what even is this? It's no Mario Maker, I can tell you that. I couldn't even play it because when I tried to boot it up, it just took me to the next stage before I had a chance to do anything. Alrighty then. Well, in regular stages, you got a bunch of crazy critters and even your own boss impeding your progress. I'm not sure what Foreman Spike's deal is, but I guess he's trying to clear all the structures before you. Enemies also tend to follow you everywhere you go, even when they get stuck in a loop of climbing up ladders and dropping to the left. Idiots. Stages can be flooded with these guys, so what can you do about it? Just try your best to avoid them, plain and simple. Yeah, Mario might have a magic hammer, but either it's only useful against bricks and concrete, or he just never gets the idea to use it and try to kill things. You can knock enemies off of stuff by setting off bombs and using the hammer to break down ladders while they're climbing up them, but can't I just, beat them with it? I know I can't jump on them because you can't jump at all. Both A and B are assigned to the hammer, so when enemies close in on you from both sides, prison rules, I guess.
Who dropped the soap? Who dropped the soap?
Now, I can tolerate these kind of limitations in something like Captain Toad because... Wait, I said I wasn't going to talk about it here, didn't I? Well, anyway, that game has bigger levels and gives you more means of defending yourself. But in this game, the level design is more cramped, and the limitations feel more like a hindrance. The enemy placement can also feel really cheap at times. I do succumb to my own mistakes, like right here, where I just missed the ladder by a few steps, and then this eggplant guy does me in. Kinda sounds like a euphemism for something. But when this fireball appeared right on top of me...
That ain't right.
I'll bet you there's some Wrecking Crew experts out there watching this thinking, wow, he really sucks at this game. But in my defense, I'd never actually played Wrecking Crew before making this video, so I had absolutely no idea what to do or what was going on. I saw an uppercase M pop up at one point, and there was also some kind of cow that did something when I touched it. I'm sorry to say, but I couldn't really get into this one. I don't think it's a bad game at all, I just find it a little annoying. Let's see if the sequel's any better. Wrecking Crew 98, obviously, was released in 1998 for the Super Nintendo in Japan. And already it's pretty unique in that you get 2 games in one. You can either play the original Wrecking Crew, which... why would I want to play that again? And then there's the sequel. It's all in Japanese, however, so I resorted to playing a fan translation. But I'm not sure how accurate the translations really are. I mean, just look at the story mode. That day, the weather was great. Which day is it? Mario was in such a great mood. Oh, good. Is that why he looks so pissed off? In this campaign, Mario comes home from a vacation only to find that Bowser's been building secret hideouts all over the kingdom, one of which is right next door to Mario's house. Not really a secret hideout then, if it's out in the open and you're letting people know it's being built, but... Bowser's always been kind of a dumbass, so whatever. Oh, look, it's that eggplant guy from the first game.
Oh, if it isn't Mario. I could never beat you back then.
Did you see how pathetic Mario was in that game? He could stub his toe on a small coffee table and that would be enough to kill him. But humans do be like that sometimes. So while the first game was a puzzle platformer, Wrecking Crew 98 is more of a standard block stacker, where you either have to get your opponent's blocks to overflow, or just clear your side to win. You break down walls to reveal different colored panels, and you also have these switches that let you shift blocks horizontally until you match up 3 panels of the same color, but matching 4 of them will let you attack your opponent, and the more panels you line up, the greater your attack will be. I made sure to spend some time on the tutorial to familiarize myself with the gameplay before jumping into the story mode, and then immediately after going back to the main menu, a bunch of tiny little SpongeBobs must have emptied my mind of everything that didn't have to do with fine dining and breathing, because somehow I forgot what I was supposed to do and how I was supposed to do it, so I just kept trying to break blocks and hope that somehow I would win. I realized what I could have done after watching the footage back with a slightly better idea of how the game works, but I don't really care enough to pick it up again. Wrecking Crew 98 is more comprehensible in my opinion than the first game, but at the same time, I think it makes what should be a reasonably simple concept a little more complicated than it needs to be. Thankfully, our next game is much simpler, and I mean a lot simpler. This is Alleyway for the Game Boy, and it's Breakout. You make a ball bounce off a paddle that you move back and forth to hit little rectangles. Not much else to say, it's Breakout. So what does this have to do with Mario? Well, the intro shows that the paddle you're controlling is actually a spaceship being piloted by Mario himself. I can't imagine what it must be like for him to constantly have a giant ball bashing against him at all times, but yes, you are technically playing as Mario, and there are even bonus stages where the blocks are shaped like different Mario characters, including a Koopa Troopa and a blooper, which officially makes this a Mario game. How is this freaking ball not hitting anything? For most stages, the blocks on the top remain static, but some stages have them scrolling across the screen horizontally like they're on conveyor belts, and others have them vertically shift closer to the bottom, adding a fun degree of challenge by limiting the amount of space you have and making it harder to keep up with the ball as it bounces around. Stage 10 also has these 2 black columns in the center of the board, and it was kind of tricky to clear all the blocks in this level, not only since the columns can't be broken, but just getting the ball to go in between them was harder than splitting an atom. Whether you're playing the original Breakout or one of its many clones, there's always an itty-bitty little snag you hit when you only have a few more blocks left to clear before moving on to the next board, but then the ball goes right past them, and so you just sit there watching it bounce around, waiting for it to actually hit something. Alleyway didn't have me doing this much. In fact, I got pretty lucky during parts of it. Like, look at how many blocks I cleared at the start of this stage. But it wouldn't be a Breakout game without some waiting, would it? Alright, let's hit this. Okay, went over it. Oh my god, come on. You're just hitting the same spots over and over. Come on. You mother humper. Regardless, if you like Breakout, or Arkanoid, or any game of this style, you'll like this one fine. But now let's jump back to the SNES and take a look at Mario and Wario. This game was developed by Game Freak 3 years before they started working on the Pokemon series. It was also only released in Japan, but unlike Wrecking Crew 98, the game is entirely in English. Apparently a North American localization was planned, and there was even a potential box art made for it, but for whatever reason, it just never happened. Maybe that's for the better, because what's anyone supposed to make of this cover? Is Mario gonna tear down walls by shooting lasers out of his hands? Well, spoiler alert, no. But when you start the game, you have 3 characters to choose from. Each of them move automatically, with Yoshi being the fastest, Peach being the slowest, and Mario being the most average. But they can't see where they're going because they've got a bucket on their head. Or something else, depending on the world you're in. So instead of controlling them, you control a fairy named Wanda using the SNES mouse, and you have to help guide our heroes to the goal sign where Luigi is. Yes, the fairy's name is Wanda, and I could easily make a Fairly OddParents joke here, but after seeing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, magic users named Wanda kinda scare me now. I wouldn't trust her with my life. How do I know she's not gonna turn me into Play-Doh? But just to make sure your character doesn't walk into a wall or fall down a pit like a total dumbass, you can click on them to make them change directions. You can also click on enemies and other hazards to make Wanda get rid of them. Did I mention this was a mouse game? You click on block outlines to... Oh, sorry, I lost my spot. You click on block outlines to generate platforms, and you can even find invisible blocks by clicking suspiciously empty parts of a level, which I found by complete accident, but was still pretty cool. There are also coin blocks that obviously give you coins, as well as timed blocks that remain solid for a short time after being clicked on. Later stages have you finding super mushrooms to give you some time back, and the obligatory star-based collectibles. Except you actually get an extra life from grabbing 4 of them, so that's nice. Then after clearing 10 stages in a row, you can enter a bonus stage where you click on Wario to have Wanda smack him with a hammer. Oh, and look! Wario's flying a plane for the first time, which wouldn't be a thing again until Wario Land 3. You can also try sending yourself to horny jail. I don't know why, but I used to really love this game growing up. Maybe because I discovered it on my own and not a lot of other people really knew about it. That must have made me feel like I was in on something that no one else was. It definitely has a lot of charm to it though. In fact, it almost kind of feels like a spiritual predecessor to the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, with you having to get your character to the end of a stage rather than playing as the characters themselves. But Mario and Wario also shares a similar problem to the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series in that it can be a little monotonous. And maybe this has to do more with the emulation, but moving the mouse felt kinda jerky, so sometimes when you try to make platforms, you'll either accidentally click on other blocks to make them disappear, or miss the blocks you were trying to click on in the first place. Oh, and there goes Mario. Farewell, my friend, you will be dearly missed. You can set the speed at which the mouse moves to make it easier for yourself, and I like how you can drag your mouse around the screen just before starting a level, so you can look at the entire stage and get a sense of where certain things are, and better figure out how to get to the goal and get all the stars along the way. But it's also pretty weird seeing all these characters in the background, but they don't actually move. Are they just frozen in time?
Like a painting.
Not what I was thinking, but who am I to question an actor of your caliber? But that's enough movement for now. Let's slow down and take a look at something that requires a little more thought, like Mario's Picross for the Game Boy. This is an example of a logic-based puzzle game where you have to reveal a picture by following the numbers on the top and left side of the grid. The numbers on top tell you how many boxes need to be filled going down, and the numbers on the left tell you how many need to be filled in going right. I'm probably not explaining it that well, but in my defense, I'm not that good a writer.
Kinoko.
And it's pretty easy to figure out once you get the hang of it. If you still need a little help, you can also have the game fill in 2 rows for you at the start of each round, but which rows depend on where the roulette stops. You can also erase boxes that you've already filled in if you feel they might not be the right spaces, but The game will tell you when you made a mistake anyway, so just go with the flow and wait until you win. You have 30 minutes to solve a puzzle, but you lose time when you fill in the wrong boxes, and each consecutive mistake takes more time away. But if you're able to solve it, you'll get some pixel art of things like an Undertale logo, a Brental Floss logo, a Minecraft pickaxe, bread, apparently, and a tinkle? Funny, that kinda looks like a bell. Oh my god, why do you feel the need to show off, mystery motorcycle man with a tiny penis? And that's pretty much the entire game, just blacking out squares until you make a picture. But puzzle games can still give you a great time no matter how simple the concept is, and Mario's Picross is a lot of fun. But I will say, this game might just have the strangest advertisement ever printed in Nintendo Power magazine. Look at this! Wow, isn't that a great way to sell a game to people? Let them know that playing it can turn your head into a giant scrotum. 6 months after the first game was released, a sequel titled Mario Super Picross came out for the Super Nintendo. It was initially exclusive to Japan until it was released on the Virtual Console in Europe and Australia, but then in 2020, the game was finally brought to America as part of the SNES collection for the Switch Online service. It's still entirely in Japanese, and trying to read any foreign language is like looking at hieroglyphics to me, so like with Wrecking Crew 98, I resorted to an English ROM. It's not too different from the Game Boy game, but it's not exactly a direct port either. They added a feature where you can mark numbers on the grid with a little red pencil, I guess to remind yourself which rows you cleared, at least that's what I use it for. And after clearing the first level, you unlock a new mode called Wario's Picross, where you don't get any hints, and you're not even told if any of the spots you fill in are right or wrong. It might not sound like much, but it's actually pretty hard, and a few of the puzzles here left me completely stumped. Well done, Wario. You prick. When comparing the Game Boy and SNES versions, I don't really prefer one over the other, but I guess I would go with Super Picross, mainly for the addition of Wario's Picross, since it does add a great degree of difficulty. But you'd think with this being on more graphically versatile hardware compared to the Game Boy, that the pictures would be clearer and more detailed. And while some of them are animated now, which is kinda cute, a lot of them still have as much detail as an Atari 2600 game. You see this one? That's the Big Dipper. Yes, this puddle of spit is supposed to be the Big Dipper. Kinda stretching it there, game. Okay, this one's just a single pixel, so what's it gonna be, a fly or something? A deserted island. Sure, why not? And what's this one? The sole of a foot? Well, whoever this foot belongs to, they definitely need to see a doctor, because I'm pretty sure toes aren't supposed to do that. But Mario isn't the only character in this franchise to star in his own puzzle games. A few of his friends have a couple under their belts as well. Yoshi most of all. Before he had an island, or a story, or a woolly world, or a crafted world, or a topsy-turvy, Yoshi's faction of the Mario franchise began with a self-titled puzzle game for the NES and Game Boy, which I was already having fun with just by messing with the music on the option screen. In this one, you stack up rows of enemies and you clear them by either wiping out rows of 2 or encasing them inside Yoshi eggs, which will hatch into different sized Yoshis depending on how tall your stack is. So you might get a little baby Yoshi, a slightly bigger Yoshi with wings, or you can make a chonk. Unlike other puzzle games, rows can only be cleared vertically, which you could say is kinda dumb, but I think it adds a little bit more challenge. The game also has 2 modes. In Game A, you have to clear as many rows as you can, while in Game B, you just have to clear the entire board. And that's it. Yeah, it's pretty basic, but still decent in my opinion. Apparently I got a mostly negative reception though, with some critics labeling it dull and overly luck-based. I don't really see it, honestly. I guess the RNG is a little weak, but I've played Mario Kart Tour, so when it comes to luck, you can do far, far, far worse. This title was also made by Game Freak, predating Mario and Wario, and if you couldn't tell that the same people that worked on Pokemon also worked on this, the music makes it abundantly clear. It sounds like something right out of Gen 1 or Gen 2, and I love it. Game Boy versions of NES games were usually more or less identical to their console counterparts, and Yoshi for the Game Boy is the same story. Except now, instead of a football field, the results screen in Game B has Mario and Yoshi in a blank void. And when Yoshi's hatch, it sounds like Samus firing her arm cannon in Metroid 2. Less than a year later, there was Yoshi's Cookie, also for the NES and the Game Boy, as well as the Super Nintendo. It's another clear rows of things kind of game, but now you're clearing rows of cookies, although I'm pretty sure these ring-shaped ones are actually giant Cheerios. Unlike the previous game, you can clear rows vertically as well as horizontally, and shift them up and down or side to side until the same cookies match up. There are also these cookies shaped like Yoshi's face that act as substitutes, so you can line them up with any other cookie and clear them. You do the same thing for a whole round of 10 stages, and then you move on to the next round of 10. And yeah, that's it. It's nothing I haven't played before, but it's still pretty enjoyable. The cookie theming alone makes it really unique, and the presentation just draws you in with these cute little cutscenes that play between rounds, and even before you press the start button. And you can still mess with the music on the options menu. Although, I'm a little put off by this red outline around Mario's eyes. Has he been working so hard that his eyes have gone bloodshot? Is he just high? Well, at least we'd know what he's putting in those cookies. The Game Boy version is exactly the same, right down to the animations. The only major difference is that Yoshi appears on the board standing above Mario. Hello! Meanwhile, the SNES version has more of a Super Mario World influence in its presentation, which immediately gives it a thumbs up from me. The stages have different backgrounds, adding some visual variety. There's a new soundtrack, the Cheerios now look like everything bagels, Mario really has a grudge against the options menu, and he sounds like a chipmunk. As much as I enjoyed my time with Yoshi's Cookie, however, I honestly find the history of this game and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff a little more interesting than the game itself. The basic idea for the game originated from an arcade title called Hermetica, but when it was tested in Japanese arcades, poor reception caused the original developer, Home Data, to scrap it. Later, Bulletproof Software picked up where they left off and decided to rework it into a Yoshi game. Nintendo worked on the NES and Game Boy versions, while developed and published the SNES version, with Tetris creator Alexei Pajitnov acting as a designer. And this one really took me by surprise. John Knoll is credited as a software development manager. If his IMDb is any indication, it's the same John Knoll that co-created Photoshop and is currently the chief creative officer of Industrial Light and Magic, the VFX house built specifically to make Star Wars even remotely possible. That's random, but also kind of awesome. The SNES game later got a re-release titled Yoshi no Cookie Kuruppon Oven de Cookie. I'm really sorry if I butchered that. But anyway, it was made by Panasonic to promote their Kuruppon ovens, and it's one of the rarest Mario games in existence, with only 500 copies out in the wild. A remake of Yoshi's Cookie was also bundled with the Japanese-exclusive Nintendo Puzzle Collection for the GameCube, which features an updated take on the NES soundtrack and added a story mode where Mario and Yoshi have to retrieve cookies from Bowser. Fat ass. This collection actually leads into our next game, because one of the other games that's on here is a sequel to Panel de Pon, released for the Super Nintendo in Japan in 1995. Yoshi's Island was also getting pretty big around this time, and I guess Nintendo thought no one outside Japan was gonna want to play a game about a cute little fairy, so when Panel de Pon arrived in other countries starting in the summer of 1996, Yoshi and his friends took the place of the original cast, and the game's title was changed to Tetris Attack. So we have a game reworked to be based on another game that is also named after another game that has nothing to do with either of them. What a pickle. I guess it's kinda like Tetris in that you have to clear rows of blocks, but that's like saying Disney Pixar's Cars, the video game, is a Crash Team Racing clone because they both have hub worlds. Tetris Attack couldn't be any farther from the real Tetris if it tried. For one thing, instead of blocks dropping down from the top of the screen, they're actually coming up from the bottom in stacks of different colors, so you have to swap blocks around until they match up in rows of 3, or more if you can get decent combos. There's an endless mode where you can just keep clearing rows as long as you can. There's a puzzle mode where you're given rows of blocks and you have to clear them using a certain number of moves. And then stage clear mode has you clearing multiple levels by getting the blocks below the clear line, and then you get a password. Or a nuclear launch code. You're also given actual characters to pick from, but you're not really playing as the characters themselves, you're just picking different backgrounds for the board. And just for shits and giggles, I took a look at their character bios on the main menu. A little problem has come up here, but with help from little Yoshi, I think we can take care of it. Ah, yes, how could we get anywhere without this little guy sitting in a corner and doing nothing?
Hey there, don't step on my friends.
Yeah, let me do it! Also, why is Hookbill Koopa's quote written with a stutter? Is he supposed to sound like Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder?
I'm gonna make mince meat out of that cock.
Tetris Attack would eventually make its way to Japan after the Yoshi reskin, but not on the Super Nintendo. Instead, they got Tetris Attack on the Game Boy, which also came out in America alongside the SNES version. As you'd imagine, it's similar to the console game, but there's also Versus Computer, which I guess acts as a story mode, since there's a plot involving Bowser using magic to flood the world with heavy rain and hypnotizing Yoshi's friends to be his minions. Well, I didn't realize Blarg was supposed to be a friend of Yoshi's, but maybe he's actually a really nice guy. Probably goes to church on Sundays. Maybe he's the pastor. There are more questionable aspects to this mode. Like, why is there both a water stage and a sea stage? And why is it that the foreground elements on the map screen move when you go onto the next stage, but the background stays completely still? Is that Mario and Wario under that mask? Old Man Peterson!
Up yours, woke moralists.
But the map feature itself is really cute, and the stages actually do get progressively harder as you go along. I actually ended up recording footage of this version longer than I was expecting to because of how much I got into this mode. The SNES game is still my preferred means of playing, but honestly, I think you can get away with playing either of them because, ignoring the limitations of the hardware, this game is a blast. Tetris Attack was retooled to appeal to gamers outside Japan, but ironically, it hasn't seen any digital re-releases outside of Japan. Meanwhile, the original Panel de Pon was the one they decided to bring to the Switch Online service, so either perceptions have changed over time, or Nintendo just didn't feel like paying for the license to the Tetris name. The concept was also reused multiple times in a bunch of different games, sometimes within other games, while adopting the Puzzle League moniker it's probably better remembered for. But I don't care if you have to dust off your copy of Animal Crossing New Leaf or shell out a couple $100 for a physical copy of Pokemon Puzzle League. Oh, wait, never mind. Well, whatever version of Puzzle League / Tetris Attack you can get your hands on, play it. Oh, but speaking of retooling, did you know that Rare was originally going to release Panel de Pon overseas, but with characters from Killer Instinct? Yeah, I just felt the need to mention that because it's honestly kind of hilarious. Alright, the last Yoshi game we have to cover for this video is Yoshi Touch Go for the Nintendo DS. And like Yoshi's Cookie, it's another case of me being more interested in its development than the game itself. Apparently, Touch Go was planned to be a GameCube title, and at one point splitting the game into two versions was also considered, one for the GameCube and one for the DS. A demo for the handheld version titled Balloon Trip was shown off at E3 2004, and was apparently such a hit at the show that Nintendo shifted focus to the DS and scrapped the console version entirely. The results, appropriately noted by the game's own title, is very Touch Go in terms of its quality. So according to the Cambridge Dictionary, it's dodgy, squishy, and neither fish nor fowl. This game is split into two halves, both of which require you to use the touchscreen. In the first half, Baby Mario is floating toward the bottom, and you have to use your stylus to draw lines of clouds for him to slide on in order to avoid enemies and hazards. Then once he gets to the ground, he rides on Yoshi's back like a traditional Yoshi's Island game, but for this section, you tap Yoshi to make him jump, tap him repeatedly in the air to flutter jump, and tap in front of him to make him throw eggs. This is all you really do, because Yoshi walks automatically, and somehow he's slower than it's taking me to get these videos out on time. Yoshi Touch Go shares the same problem I have with Wrecking Crew, where the mechanics sorta get in the way of the experience. But while that game was at least designed specifically with that gameplay style in mind, this one takes an already established gameplay style that worked perfectly fine in its own way, and forces it to be something it's not. They also make some extremely questionable design choices, particularly in the ground sections. Like, you can still jump on enemies, but you can't eat them. Yes, a Yoshi game where he can't eat enemies. So how do you get more eggs? Well, you could eat fruit. Most of the time the fruit has to be shot out of the sky using eggs for you to get it, and you'd better have a decent aim, because if you hit the fruit too late, by the time it gets to the ground, you will have walked too far ahead, so it ends up landing right behind you. And the sky section with Baby Mario, I'm only recording voiceover, but I'm already getting tired just thinking about it. It's so boring. I don't know how else to describe it, it's just...
Dull! My God, it's dull! It's so desperately dull and tedious and stuffy and boring and desperately dull!
Well, let's hope that our last game will prove to be any better. This is Wario's Woods, and despite this greedy bastard's name being in the title, you're actually playing as Toad, and you have to blow up all these cute little critters by matching them up in vertical, horizontal, or even diagonal rows that also contain bombs. There's also a story mode that involves Wario and a group of monsters invading this place called the Peaceful Woods, and for some reason it's up to Toad to take them down. Well, I guess those cute little critters ain't so cute after all. Wait, I can put in a name for myself? Okay, Wario's Woods, from now on you can call me... Chick. Wario's Woods has a stacking mechanic similar to Yoshi, but instead of using plates, you pick them up and stack them on top of other enemies. But it's not just matching up enemies of the same color, because, like I said before, in order to clear them out, rows have to contain at least one bomb. They're also diamonds, but from what I can tell, they serve the same function, so I don't really know what the point of them being here is. Like Yoshi's Cookie, it's nothing new in terms of gameplay, but it has a more action-based approach that helps make it stand out. Except, I personally just don't really like how this game plays. I'll be the first to tell you that I completely suck at this game, but if I were to go online and tell you a game is bad because I'm not good at it, then I might have just gotten hired at Polygon. Subjectively, Wario's Woods is just a little too clunky for my liking, and I think it focuses too much on the style and presentation, and not enough on the gameplay. You can excel at this if you give it enough time and patience, and even I got a little better at the game over time. But at that point, I was mainly just playing out of obligation, and not because I actually wanted to keep playing. And oh my god, Wario's hat is the wrong color. This is disgraceful. How could Nintendo get away with this? Everyone boycott this game immediately. Someone call Chris Chan. Actually, don't call Chris Chan. That's a terrible idea. Never mind. As for the SNES version, well, it's exactly the same, only with a single player mode where you go up against the computer. Oh, I gotta put in a name for this one too? Alright, fine. There you go. That's my name. Plop. Okay, now we can play against the computer. Wait, what the... Oh, that was fast, but maybe I did something wrong, so let's just give it... Oh my god, where did all these come from? What is What? Again? Already? Jesus. Alright, well, I guess I better step up my game. Oh, come on! Oh, Jesus. I'm playing on easy mode, and the CPU is way too fast for me. I know I'm not very good at this game, and I'm not expecting them to do nothing or just give me wins, but this is supposed to be the easy mode? I can't be this bad, can I? And why does Katsini here look suspiciously like Tatanga? Oh, maybe I'm not so bad after all, because I got a technical rank certification for doing somewhat decently in the time race mode. Congratulations, Plop, you're not a complete failure. There isn't much else to say about Wario's Woods, except that it's objectively not bad. I just can't get a grasp of it, whether in 8-bit or 16-bit. So let's just spout some random trivia, because frankly, it's far more interesting. The NES version came out around the same time as the Super Nintendo version, which was December 1994. So by then, the NES version wasn't just the last first-party game made for the console, but it was also the last officially licensed NES game released in North America, and it's the only NES game to have an ESRB rating. and apparently it was rated CA. The game was also co-developed by Intelligent Systems, and for Ryota Kawade, future director of the first 3 Paper Mario games, it was the first game he worked on after joining the company as a designer. But unlike the NES game, Wario's Woods for the Super Nintendo never made its way to Japan. However, there were a few versions made for the Satellaview, a Japanese exclusive add-on for the SNES that allowed it to connect to the internet via satellite so that players could download special games to their console. Through this service, Japanese gamers were treated to Wario's Woods again, which was a mostly edited port of the English release. And there was also the Burst of Laughter version, which replaced most of the sprites with Japanese celebrities, because they just loved shoehorning comedians and pop stars into Mario games back then. Thank God Nintendo of America has never done anything like that here in the States. Can you imagine a port of Super Mario Kart where all the drivers were replaced with SNL cast members? That would be pretty hilarious, actually. Wait, who was in the cast around that time? Oh, okay, yeah, that would have been great. So there we have most of Mario's puzzle-related adventures, but obviously we haven't tackled all of them. There's another game called Undocky 30 Same Game, and from what I gather, it's basically a Mario-themed Monte Carlo game. There are games I'm saving for future videos, like the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, which you're not going to be seeing this year, just so you know, but I will get to them someday. Donkey Kong himself had a few of his own, like DK King of Swing and DK Jungle Climber. There's also Yakuman DS, which is basically Mahjong, but with Mario characters. There's a truck driving right outside my house. Recently, we got Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition on the 3DS, which is something that definitely exists. And I don't know, I feel like there's something I'm leaving out. Like, maybe there's a game I'm missing. Could it be? That's probably nothing. Let me tell you, I had fun with most of these games, but I think I'm all puzzled out for the time being. One thing I noticed when reading about these games, however, is that most of them have never spun off into their own sub-series or got any sequels. Unless it's Dr. Mario, these are all mostly one-offs. Actually, you could say that for a lot of Mario games. But I'm not really gonna foreshadow my next video just because I can't think of an ending for this video, am I? Yes. Yes, I am. And that concludes another Summer of Mario video, and before we go, I want to give another very special thanks to my superstar supporters for this month, Red Rack, Henry Newman, Rachel Rodriguez, and Jake Winans. If you'd like to support me as well, then please consider pledging to my Patreon page, buying me a coffee, or becoming a sponsor by clicking the join button. Membership options give you the same benefits as my Patreon, including being able to watch videos before they come out, getting access to exclusive content like commentaries and scripts, and things of that nature, and getting shoutouts in the end of my videos. I should also mention that I'm taking a 2-week break in the middle of August, so that's probably going to slow down progress a little bit as well. And I'm starting to get a little paranoid about the possibility of these videos bleeding into the fall, and I don't really like when I have to do that, so I'm curious, if that does end up happening, do you guys care if I take off the Summer of Mario name and just release them as regular videos? Because personally, that makes me feel a little better about putting them out, but I'm not sure how you guys feel. I'll still probably include them in like the Summer of Mario playlist, but let me know what you guys think. But anyway, links to my social media and Discord server are in the description as always, and if you want to stay updated on my future uploads, be sure to click the notification bell next to the subscribe button. The plumbing went off because I guess someone just used the toilet, and I can't think of a better note to go out on, so thanks again for watching, and with that said, this is Mark bidding you all a smashing farewell. Bye!